it's time to heal and feel, be real. You just gotta take your time, unwind and chill. Cause now it's time to love yourself. Build emotional and mental health. Cause Black woman, it's time to heal and feel, be real.
Hey y'all, we're back with another episode of Black Women Healing Podcast. And if you're watching, which we hope that you are, you will see that we have a very special guest. But before we introduce our guest, as usual, we're going to do a this or that. And Sheila, I thought about you with this question because I've been following you for a little minute. And so the question is, would you rather sing all night with friends or dance all night with friends?
Oh my God, that's a hard question. I'm going to go with sing.
Why? I thought you was going to pick dance.
I know.
Dancing.
I just feel like there's less pressure. I always think about dancing feels so much full of pressure. Singing just feels like, okay, we can do Disney sing-alongs. We can do karaoke. There's a lot of opportunity there. But that's a hard choice, though. You asking me to pick a favorite child with that.
Okay. I feel that. Danica, what you got?
It is hard. I can't sing, but it is something freeing about just letting your voice through, off key, whatever comes out. And then the songs, the music through the body. But I'm going to choose dance because I feel like if I sing, I have no choice but to dance. I have no choice. It's
they
just
go together, right?
It's going to happen. So I'm going to say dance. And if my friends know I'm one of those. Once you get me out, I can be out all night. You can be like, "Where's the next place? Where's the next place?" Once I'm out, you can keep me out.
Wow, shout out
getting
to
me
you.
out.
I'm one and done. I'll be ready to go home.
No, I still have it. Yeah.
You do 3 different types of dance though. So what type of dance are you doing? Because you do pole, you do twerk, you do a little bit of everything. So which one you picking? You can only pick one.
I mean, I don't even know if it's a category, but it's like just like a little this is it. That's it. I don't want to say it because it just depends. I be in the Afro beats. I be you right. It just depends. It's not gonna be a pole everywhere, and I ain't polling them in front of everybody.
Facts.
So I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna say that it never fails. Just doing your 2-step vibing out side to side, move the hips. You ain't got to do too much of a twerk, but you're moving your body. I don't even know what category that's called. But what about you, Myra?
You know how I get when I start dancing. I'm definitely gonna be dancing. I'm not gonna. My cousins was making fun of me the other day because they were like, "You do backflips and splits and stuff." I'm not doing all that stuff, but I'm definitely gonna dance because I love to dance. It's so fun.
Okay, so we got dancing and singing.
Period.
Yes.
All right, y'all. So now that we've been brought in with our this or that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest. So today we have Shelah Marie. She is an author, storyteller, and founder and CEO of Curvy Curly Conscious, an advocate for unruly women everywhere. Shelah empowers and educates her attendees, audience, and readers to challenge their beliefs about themselves, embrace their full expression, and make choices from a place of aligned authenticity. She is the author of Positive You, a personal growth journal for women in lives in Atlanta. Oh, yes. And a new book, Unruly, a guide to reclaiming your true self, to be released October 22nd, 2024. So, yay, let's give it up for Shelah. So today we're going to be chatting about this book. We have to get into it. So as you all can hear, she's an experienced author. So Shelah, what was your inspiration behind writing another book?
Yeah, so for the first book that I wrote was A Positive You. It's a self-guided journal for positivity. So that book had a little bit of me in it, but it was mostly journaling prompts for women to inspire more positivity in their day-to-day life. So with Unruly, this book feels like a lot more me in it. It felt like, to me, the book that I wish I would have had. And that's really why I wrote it. I just wrote it because I felt like there was a need. To me, there's a lot of self-development books out there. Thankfully now there's a lot of self-development text written by Black women. However, I don't see a lot of self-development books that also make space for larger structures that affect our inability or ability to self-actualize. Like, I don't see a lot of self-help text talking about capitalism or patriarchy or misogyny, racism, how those things may affect your own personal wellness. So I just felt like it was a book that was missing. I needed a book that talked to specifically Black women from a Black woman's perspective and made space for, yes, you can do all the things, you can be all the things, but it's also okay to acknowledge how you're affected by outside structures.
I love that you said that, because one thing I really appreciated about the book was you mentioned other authors and other researchers that I read about too, but you interwove it in a very special way. And I really appreciate it where you talk about sisterhood and family and the way you talk about it in many different aspects, but also self. And so that's why y'all need to get the book, because it really takes a deep dive in just the many ways in which we as Black women exist. And something for me, and I read it like 50 times, I even went back and read it today, was when you talk about your mess. And so I just want to read what that exactly is before I ask the question, so that we
Okay.
fully understand it. And it's on page 56 for when y'all get the book, okay? So you said, I offer you the opportunity to reclaim the word mess. Mess is any self-described unwanted experiences, behaviors, or emotions. Your mess is your power. It is a sum of your perceived mistakes. But notice I said perceived mistakes, meaning they're not truly failures or errors that require your guilt or shame. And I felt so seen in that moment, because I thought about my mess of me being a teenager, me being my college age self, and now me being a mom. And it took me that far back, and that's why I had to reread it, in the ways in which I kind of almost make myself in trouble. Like, I punish myself because of my mess.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so what I wanted to say was, the idea of accepting your mess was such an aha moment for me. And before we take a deeper dive, I was curious how you two think about your mess, because again, I was thinking about me as a mom, of just the ways in which my childhood impact how I show up as a mom, and that being my mess that is carried over, and me being so hard on myself because of it, especially with this patience thing. Like, my mom never had patience with me, and I've
Yeah.
never had the patience with myself. And now, me being a mom, I feel like it's almost my mess that I'm carrying, of when I find myself getting frustrated with my child, of it just being there, being like, here's some garbage, and me being so hard on myself. But rather, when I read it, I was like, it is your mess that you got to work through, girl. And you don't have to be so hard on yourself because of this mess. So I'm curious for y'all, what is your current mess?
Well, I think, like, when I think of mess, you almost described it perfectly. I just think of it like a metaphorical closet, like you just stuffing things in there. I don't want to look at that now. I don't know. I might need that Christmas thing one day, but I don't know. And then, like, the door is busting at the seams, and if you open it, everything just spills out. I feel like it's kind of like that. Your mess is like all the things that you wish to separate from yourself. In the words of Carl Jung, it's like the things you wish not to be. So to me, I think that is where unruly women's power is in the things that you think you're not supposed to be or you don't want to be. I think by reclaiming those things and making them a part of who you are, integrating them into yourself, that's how you become a new level of power. Like, nobody can use those things against you. My mess, I would say, is when I was younger, I felt that my home life was really chaotic, but where I felt that I could excel was in school. So I was always like a really good student. I put a lot into my schoolwork. And so I have a little perfectionist side of me that, like, thinks that everything needs to be done yesterday. It needs to be done perfectly. And so my mess is like when I feel like I'm not performing good enough or at the standard that I put to myself, when half the time the things are great. It's just this it's just unrealistic, never ending, like, goalposts that moves in our minds, because these things are not real. They're created from when we're very young, and they don't necessarily evolve with us. But that's what I would say.
Wow. Yeah, no. Myra most definitely. As soon as she hit this moment, she was like, we have to talk about this. Especially because she had this aha moment. For me, I think it made me think about the fact that I've really learned to forgive myself for any mess that I do create and that I have created. And you say this in your book too, which I believe is super powerful and super true. Because I'm so forgiving of myself, it makes me more forgiving of others in a sense of giving grace, right? So it's just a difference. I don't just go around like letting people do whatever. I have really strong boundaries, but I do give a lot of grace to people. I'm always thinking about like, I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what I don't really know. So I give a lot of grace. And I think it's because I've been able to forgive myself for the mess that I've created in some situations. So yeah, that's what stood out to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I love the ability to be able to read something and really take the time to have more than one reflection. And I think that's what I love so much about the book. You can't read the book just one time. You can't read a page just one time. And I feel like that's why I'm so appreciative of even having this conversation with you two today, of just, reflecting on it. And so as I thought about the book, Donika is really big on devotionals, and she loves a particular person that creates these devotionals. And what I had said to her was, this feels like a devotional for me, of something I want to read to get my day started, something I want to take my time with. Although, we had to read it for this, I see myself going back and just reading a few pages every day because, again, it feels like it's speaking to me. And so as we think about the book, it's kind of like a monologue / journal / devotional. And to sum it up, your book is almost like a retreat. Like, I imagine that this is what Unruly is like if we were to attend it. And so out of curiosity, what was your process in kind of adding all these components together? And even as I mentioned before, like, you do reference other authors also. So what was this whole experience like for you creating it?
Yeah, it was a journey. When I first started writing the book, I went into it with a little bit of that perfectionist energy, and I thought that I needed to just sit down and be very clinical about the way that I do it. And I'm sitting at a desk and I have office hours, and I'm writing. And then I took all of myself out of the book. I was like, this is not about me. I want this to be about my community. And then I turned it in, and my publisher was like, girl, what is this? Girl, where are you? And I had to go back, and then I was like, how do I add myself into the book but make this book to serve women? And I was like, oh yeah, it's a retreat on the page, just like you said, Myra. So that was my intention, was I wanted readers to feel like they were at the retreat when they're reading through the book. And even if it's just a few moments that you get to read this book, that you get to feel like you're there, you have that emotional experience. And so that was really my intention, was to give the readers as much of a retreat on the page as I could.
Yeah, I think that's a game changer. And if I'm being authentically myself, at first I was like, oh my goodness, not another self-help book, especially because Myra and I were therapists. So we read a lot of like clinical language and all that stuff. And so I was like, oh, I don't know about this. But I was like, hey girl, this is actually really good.
So hype. Like, oh my God, this is actually good. And I was like, don't play with Sheila like that.
I was like, this is actually good. Like, oh my goodness. And it's because of all these different components, right? It is so many different pieces that, like you said, it's a retreat on the page, but it is something special about being able to read it, right? And be able to experience it over, like Myra is saying. And so like, I just love these different components you have. Even like, you also have like, not only, because I think when I think of healing, I think of all of our senses and our bodies as well too. And so you have these components where you bring in like your body as well, which I think is super important. So in so many
we
different
always forget our body, don't we?
Yes, always. But you bring it in, and you bring it in like in the perfect time. It's not like too much. It's like just enough, especially for people. It feels like even if you are already introduced to like meditation and grounding work, like if you haven't heard of it, it's just enough. It's not too much, if that makes sense. Very relatable, very much so.
Oh, thank you. It makes me so happy to hear.
You know, this is really good stuff, y'all. But one of the things that I was thinking about of like this unveiling of your authentic, unruly pieces is for people who get confused and they keep changing who they are, who they think they are. So, like, what would you say for those who keep changing who they are, or they are struggling to recover those unruly parts of themselves?
I would say if somebody is always changing who they are in a certain way, they already are unruly because they already are embodying a bunch of different aspects of themselves, which is very much unruly, is embracing all your opposites, embracing all your inner diversity. However, I would say that knowing where it's coming from, if it's coming from a centered, grounded place, or is it coming from a trauma response, or is it coming from a need to protect yourself, whatever it is. But I would say if you're finding the need to always change who you are, is that impulse coming from trying to run away from a part of yourself or trying to move towards something like in a more evolved part? Like for me, I might not bring a certain aspect of myself here to this interview because it might not be appropriate. And if I brought her here, like, I don't know, if I just brought the Netflix and chill Sheila right here, that would be like inappropriate. That would be out of context. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with her. That just means she's performing on the wrong stage. So that's what I would ask is like, what's out of, if there's something out of alignment about you being all these different aspects of who you are, but in a certain way, you're already on that path. It's just about making sure that you're the director of the show and all of your actors are performing in the way that you want in order to tell the story you want to live.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that sometimes it can be difficult, like when we do start doing this self-healing, this shadow work of to be like,
Oh, yeah.
is this real or not? Is this really me, or am I making this up?
Very true.
So I love what you're saying. So basically, as you're starting to uncover and reveal these things, it's nice when you see these different sides, but really taking in like, where am I getting this from? Is this because of I want this? Is it because of my family want this? My friends,
Bingo.
society? And if it's like, no, this is me, then that is you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, Sheila, as much as you want to share, as you found yourself on this unruly path, how do you feel like you were taking care of yourself along the way? Because again, I'm thinking about just like the different phases that I've experienced in life and trying to figure out what care of myself looks like when I had certain expectations. And for example, I mean, me now being a mom, most times you see your mom will come and help you. My mom does not come and help me. And my dad is off living his life. And so it's been a journey of how am I navigating this new piece of my life, trying to stay true to myself, trying to also figure out this new version of myself when the expectations I had of people, they're just not meeting it. So I'm curious for you on these different journeys that you've been on, how are you taking care of yourself and what does that look like?
Wow. First of all, I'm sorry that you don't have that support. That must be very difficult. And yeah, my heart goes out to you. I
Thank
felt
you.
that. I think that care for myself looks different depending on what I'm going through. The care isn't the same across the board. However, I do know that I set myself up for the most success when I stick to my practices. Right now, they change, but my practices right now are I'm doing a lot of tapping. So that's like EFT or I think it's called emotional freedom technique.
Mhm.
But also in a clinical sense, I'm sure you all know you can do EMDR, but you need someone who's trained to lead you through that. But however, I've been doing my meditation, my tapping, and my 30 minutes of exercise daily. When I do those things, even though sometimes I might not want to, I might not, I can just skip it. That's when I'm at my best. That looks like care for me because I'm feeding myself and I'm preparing myself to go out into the world, which if you are anything like me, which I think you are, your therapist, but we're sponges, we're absorbing everyone's energy. We're constantly fixing problems. We're solving issues. We're decision making all day. So by nature, our days are emptying, like we're pouring out of a reserve. So for me, if I go into that day with my reserve already low, I'm setting myself up not to be cared for. And sadly, with women, the truth is we a lot of times have to care for ourselves first. because we don't necessarily get that mirrored to us from the people around us. We're supposed to be, women are traditionally socialized to be the caretakers in a given dynamic. And so if you're the one that's caretaking for everybody, it's not a lot of time where people think, I wonder, does Myra need care? I wonder, does Danica need something today? So we have to kind of model that with ourselves first, and then it'll be mirrored with people around us. But for me, taking care of myself is sticking to my practices.
Yes. You want to know what's crazy? So, well, it's not crazy. I think that this is just how life works for me in particular. But everything you just said, I literally told somebody earlier today, and I'm turning around asking you the question. And I highlight that to say it's just interesting how we can be telling someone to do something, and then we turn and ask the same question.
Oh, 100%.
We're not even following what we told that person to do. That's why as you were sharing,
it's easy to say it, right?
It's almost getting emotional because I'm like, Myra, you're telling people to do this and you don't even turn around and do it. And you really have to hone in on what you need consistently. Like, that's what I got out of what
I will say, Myra, it's even harder for mothers. I am not a mother yet. I'm a bonus mom, but I'm not a mother. And like, I feel like mothers are shamed for doing this. And it's, it's not socially acceptable. Like, it's socially acceptable to put your kids first and put everybody else before you. And there's a lot of pressure around that. You didn't just think of that out of nowhere, and you don't just feel that pressure by yourself. I just want to acknowledge you and affirm that there's a lot of pressure on moms.
I received that. Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I think that's deep. Caring for ourselves first. And it just made me think of a world, though, where, like, for you, Myra, if it was like, and I think, too, you've done an amazing job of creating a support circle that does try to do this, but it is not as, like, the first thing for Black women to be cared about in these ways. Like, imagine if everybody, like, thought of each other that way and was like, oh, yeah, I need to show care and show up for people and make sure these people are good. Like, then the hope would that it would just flow all in between us, right? We wouldn't have to just be like, no, I have to just only care about me. Like, it would flow, but that's not what we have, especially for Black women. So it's like, yeah, you literally have no choice but to take care of you first. Like, you don't have any choice, because if not, you're going to crumble eventually, in whatever ways it is.
Yeah, and that's why in the beginning of the book, I reference Melissa V. Harris Perry's metaphor for the crooked room. You guys got an uncorrected proof. So the book is a little bit different in its final form. So if I'm referencing something, you're like, what? That's because it changed just a little bit. But she referenced this study, and in the study, the clinicians put people into a room, and then they had a crooked floor and a crooked chair, and they told them to find their orientation, like stand up straight. And up to 30% of the participants were actually crooked, orienting themselves to the crookedness of the floor, but reporting that they were standing up straight. Like, they thought they were straight, but they were not, because they were adjusting themselves from, like, a crooked room. And so I think that this metaphor is really good for Black women to think about, because why do we feel like we can't rely on each other? Why do we feel like we don't ask for help? There's a crooked room, meaning there's like these outside structures. We're born, to me, in my perspective, in a crooked room, and then told to just stand up straight. And it's like, yeah, I wonder why we're tilted and hunched and our back hurts, because we're all trying to orient ourselves to a very skewed perception. There's a reason why Black women are very hyper independent. That came out of a necessity, that came out of all types of socioeconomic, political things. So it's not just that we woke up that's why I feel like when people love to shame women in general. It's like a very America's favorite pastime, and globally too. But they love to say, oh, women so independent, like you act like you own anybody. It's like, let's investigate why. This did not just pop out of thin air. None of us live in a vacuum. We're all affected by these outside structures to a degree. It doesn't mean we have to rely on it like a crutch, but it is important to acknowledge that, so then we can move forward in an honest way.
Yeah, absolutely. That metaphor is sad, but it's true, Yes, crooked smile, J. Cole. Okay.
Oh, you just put me on. Okay.
You talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to dive into this a little more. But in the book, you write about when Black women don't have a model to follow, when creating this new path? And how do they start this process of where they can write down the qualities to do this research on other Black women that they embody, who embody those qualities? So basically you give like this little excerpt of like, if you don't know where to start because you don't have those people to follow, then you start by writing some qualities down and doing research. So what I'm wondering is, and thinking of like jealousy and envy and like some of those other more negative things, where do you think this can go too far at?
Well, I think when it gets to jealousy and envy, I think that's when it's gone too far, because you are communicating the message that there's something that this person has that you don't innately. And what I believe is everything is in everyone. It's just expressed differently. We tap into different things. Like, okay, everybody here could probably play the piano. Some of us have a little bit more skill than others. But if that person is sitting down practicing for hours a day and I'm not, I can't look at them and be envious that they know how to play the piano. At the same level, though, I think like there's a way we can take that. If you're looking, let's say you're scrolling, I know this happens a lot to a lot of us, and you feel that envy pop up. Oh man, why does she have, or jealousy? Like envy is like you want something, you think that what they have should be yours, or jealousy is like coveting what they have. Oh man, she just looks so good, I wish I looked like that. I would like stop there, take a moment and use that as a tool for investigation into yourself. So what I do, I love this. It's like, I call it, you spot it, you got it. That's how I feel. If you spot it, you got it. Whatever it is that you feel strongly about in other people, whether it be good, like you admire or you lust after or you envious of them, or whether it be on a negative end, like I dislike that about that person. Whatever it is that you pull strongly towards other people also exists within you. And it's also something within you that may need you to look at it a little closer. So on a positive end, what I like to do is, I learned this in an acting class a long time ago. So she told us, pick your favorite actors. And I was like, oh my God, at the time, Viola Davis. She's one of my favorites to this day. I love her. I think she's so dynamic and amazing, and just, I love her. Oh my God. Mwah, 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 chef's kiss. And she was like, write down why you love Viola Davis. I wrote down what I loved about her. I think that she just brings such authenticity to her roles. She brings such depth, emotional complexity. And then she was like, okay, now erase Viola Davis's name and write your name. Everything that you identified in her, I want you to challenge yourself and see what parts of that already exist within you. So how are you already emotionally complex, or, how do you display a range of emotions? And it's true. Even now, people I look up to, like Brene Brown, I love her for her vulnerability. I'm also vulnerable. So there may be, not saying that we're exactly the same, but if you can take a moment to say, like, that's like a ping. When I feel a ping, it's a moment to investigate, like, okay, there's something here that's drawing me, whether it be a quote unquote negative or positive pull. But when I have that moment and I look at other people and I'm feeling an envious or a jealous thing, I have to stop, disengage, and then ask myself, what's going on here? What is it that you're seeing in her that maybe you're not acknowledging in yourself? Maybe, do you want to do that more? Are you not allowing that within yourself? So that's where I think it could just be a moment of like non-judgmental, compassionate inquiry, as opposed to just comparing yourself to somebody else.
Wow. I have a question for the both of you. It's making me think about just not women that we're related to, but Black women that you found when you were younger that you looked to, that you like really like looked to, and you found them to be almost like a role model, even though you may not have known them, versus now. And I think mine has always been Maya Angelou. And as you were sharing, I just love the way that she story tells and the way that she tells her story. And I remember being younger and be like, I gotta get a journal, because like Maya Angelou tells her story, let me have a journal. And even now I still feel so connected, but I'm always looking for other Black women to feel connected to. So I'm curious for you two, who that person or people may have been.
Oh, sorry, Danica, did you want to go?
No, you go ahead. I'm over here pondering.
I look up to so many women for so many different things. Like, I look up to somebody like for Beyonce for like her for her level of detail and her execution, like at the level of skill that she executes everything is very impressive to me. There's a lot about her life that I wouldn't want for myself, but for that part in particular, I admire bold women. So I admire pretty much I feel like a lot of women that I admire like are in my life or on Instagram that I know, like not necessarily celebrities. I'm not really somebody who like admires a lot of celebrities, but I just love bold women. I love women who are living on their own terms. I love women who are living in their own bodies, living their own stories, not just walking in a path because that was laid out for them, but making mistakes, apologizing publicly, doing better next time, not just getting up to the top and pulling out the ladder from up under them, but, reaching down low and giving a hand to other women. So I'm inspired by like so many women. Like, that you probably don't even know, just everyday women in my life and that I see online.
Yeah, no, likewise. I do, when Myra's talking about this, and this is something that I'm continuously working on, and I feel like growing up I struggle with. I didn't have like a lot of mentorship. It was just more like, even thinking of it, I'm like, who did I admire? But it was the women around me growing up, like my sister, my mom, my grandma. Like, it was those women. It wasn't, and still to this day, it's never been like celebrity types of people. But I do think it is a huge piece of growth and mentorship, and being able to see celebrities as well, like those little qualities and pieces. But yeah, I would say everyday people, like you're saying. I feel like all the women in my life, including Myra, there's so many different things that I admire and I take from them. But this is just my little coin of continuing to build mentorship, strong mentorship, not being afraid to reach out to other people in general too. People in general that I feel that I could get mentorship from.
I love that.
I love that too. I love that. I'm always down to take notes too, like when people share about someone they're interested in. Like, I never thought to think about Viola Davis, and now I'm like, I kind of want to read about her more and like watch her interviews. I
She's
like
so
doing
amazing as an actor.
that.
I looked up to like Regina King.
Mhm.
I feel like Regina King has such a very diverse, like, I think I'm all over the place. I feel like Regina King feels all over the place to me in the best way. Like, she's done Boondocks, so she's done a lot of animation voiceovers. She's directed, she's produced, she's in the project. She's not everywhere, but whenever you see Regina King, the project is gonna be quality. I still remember Watchmen to this day.
Yes.
So if I had to look up to anybody, I'm a theater person. I love actresses. So Regina King, I love her in terms of her career, like how she's navigated her career.
Yes.
And I think, Sheila, we also have to give you your flowers, because oftentimes when you think about Black women and how they're portrayed in the media, it's they beefing with each other, they fighting with each other. And when you think about Black women also, you don't really think about them meditating. And so I bridge those two things together because I have found some meditations that you had did, and I found them to be very useful in my 20s. When I was in my 20s, they were something I was really tapped into. And I remember when you started doing your retreats and me being like, oh my gosh, those are grown women getting along, traveling together, crying in each other's arms. This is possible. I remember watching the videos over and over and being like, and who is doing this? Who is bringing this together? And seeing you and your friend just doing that. And so I think you are also someone to look to see, like, she is bringing Black women together to heal together, to love on each other. This is possible. Yeah, it's very possible.
It's definitely possible.
Yes, we got to give you your flowers too.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course.
I receive.
Yes. So we always ask our guests if they have any takeaways. And it could be a resource, a book, a quote, whatever is on your mind that you want to share with our listeners.
Sure. So I'll just give this little technique. I love using this for myself too. Like, if I'm in a situation where I can't figure something out, I don't know what to do, which way should I go? Should I take this job? Should I take this opportunity? You're feeling hazy. I take a second. I take a deep breath in through the nose. I release out through the mouth. And I ask myself, what would the truest you do? Like, if I was being true to myself, what would I do? And that has helped me avoid signing so many contracts that were not good for me, even though it might have looked good on the surface or going in a certain direction. And so I'll leave you with that. I hope you use it. I think it works great.
Yes. No, I gotta leave y'all with the last the last few sentences of this book real quick because
Oh.
clearly I like this book. And so I'll make it fast as I can. It just says, I honor you for going on this journey with me. I wish you happiness, health, and liberation as you continue the process of unlearning, unfixing, and unbecoming. May you live life with you in mind first and foremost. May you go forth with a new perspective, and above all else, may you stay unruly. Repeat after me, I'm unapologetically unruly.
I'm unapologetically unruly.
I'm unapologetically unruly.
Yes.
We hope that you enjoy, and that is it for this week's episode of Black Women Healing Podcast.